Hi, Anthony Tudor. I think your mic is muted.
Hi, are you there?
You should be good to go. Anyway, we're going to get started. So, Anthony, we'll keep testing your volume. So, welcome to a discussion on creating innovators by Tony Wagner. And I'm here with my colleague from Cohort 21, Jennifer Weening, and Anthony Tudor from Bayview Glen has joined us. He's has been a guest blogger with Cohort 21, and he's a great IT coordinator and an ICT teacher at Bayview Glen. So thanks for joining us, Anthony. For those of you who are watching, we'll be referencing the book, but you don't need to actually have read it or anything like that. So we'll go through introductions. My name is Garth Nichols. I'm Vice Principal of Student Engagement and Experiential Development at Havergal. And it's a brand new role, so this book really resonated with me, and that's why I picked it back up again. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a teacher librarian at the Country Day School. I also teach communications technology and was a member of Cohort 21 this past year.
Hi, Anthony. Can you try your volume again? Nope. Anthony's volume is not working for some reason. Try rebooting it, Anthony, and we'll go from there. So let's get started. One of the things that we want to talk about with this book is around the term innovation. And if you've been following along with the conversations in Cohort 21, but also in Project 2051, we've been talking about what is innovation and what does it look like. So Jennifer, what was your big takeaway about innovation from this book?
Oh, good question. Innovation is something I think that has to, it's absolutely necessary in our schools to move away from this 19th century industrial revolution sort of model of education, the factory model, and that developing the way of developing innovation in schools and in teachers and in students is there's a lot to do with project-based learning, personalization, and allowing students to pursue passions and choice. So that was my big takeaway.
Yeah, Anthony, you want to try your volume again? Nope, we're not getting it. Try rebooting your computer, because sometimes that's necessary too, and that we've had success with that in the past. One of the things which I brought out of the book was this idea that innovation doesn't necessarily have to be something that's brand new, but innovation can also be making connections between existing elements that already exist in the school. But I do think
interdisciplinary aspect.
Yeah, interdisciplinary, but also just really breaking down the silos between what's co-curricular and what's curricular. And one of the things which really resonated with me was this idea that it has to add value. And I think for us as CIS Ontario educators, we always have to make sure that the innovation that we're bringing isn't just creative thinking for the sake of creative thinking, but rather adds value, whether that's to the mission statement or whether that's towards individual portfolios within the school. So that was my big takeaway.
Right, so did you want me to do a little intro to the book?
Yeah, sure, that would be great.
Okay, so if you haven't read the book, just a little overview of what the book is all about and the format that it follows. So it basically starts, the first section is profiles of young people who have demonstrated innovation. Hey, welcome, Jean-Pierre.
Hello.
So profiles of young people who have demonstrated innovation, exploring how they got there and the people and the experiences that shaped them. And there are some themes around that that we can explore later, but they include things like design thinking and project-based learning, teachers who thought out of the box and valued creative thinking and process and an interdisciplinary approach, and supportive parents who allowed their students to pursue their passions. The second section is all about innovating learning, so they explore some different programs like Olin College, High Tech High, MIT Media Lab, and they explore the different examples of how people are doing innovation in education. And then the final section is about the future of innovation, looks at parents and the parenting philosophies or skills that went behind creating these innovators. So the habits that they allowed their kids to develop, and the parenting practices that contributed to the development of those young innovators. So.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too. The audience for this book isn't just educators, but it's also parents. And as a parent myself, I found it quite interesting through that lens too. Hi, Jean-Pierre. How are you? Are you there, Jean-Pierre?
Yeah, I'm there. Wait, am I muted? No.
No, you're muted.
I'm good?
We can hear you, yeah. Where are you right now? Want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Jean-Pierre Trudeau. I am in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and we're in an all-boys private school called Salmon House School.
Nice, welcome. Anthony, let's check your mic.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Excellent.
You're in. Do you want to have a quick intro, Anthony? You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. My background with this particular book is that one of the chapters talks about the how humanities and technology are kind of together. So that really resonated with me. That whole chapter, he talked about that, and so my background is history and technology.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's jump in. Let's explore this just a little bit further, and I'll just draw your attention. On page 22, there's a bunch of really great questions that this book ends up deepening and exploring. And I think, for me, in my role here at Havergal College, I think it's really interesting. It says, so what would it mean if we were to intentionally develop entrepreneurial and innovative talents to all our young people to nurture, and these are, I think, important words, initiative, curiosity, imagination, creativity, and collaborative skills, as well as their analytical abilities. In both our classrooms, but also outside of our classrooms. And finally, what can we learn from those who successfully mentor pioneering entrepreneurial innovators? And these are the driving questions in the book. And I think that it's important as we move through the book that we always bring it back to the level of why innovation, and then also how of innovation. And I'm just going to take a moment to say hello to Diana. Hi, Diana.
Hi, Garth.
Diana and I met when we took the Alt MBA, which was put together by Seth Godin. I had the honor and privilege of working with Diana. Do you want to introduce yourself, Diana?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. So Diana here. I work out of Montreal, Canada, and I work for an education technology startup. So what I do kind of aligns with Garth, and I'm in the process now of setting up an entrepreneurship boot camp. So today's talk of creating innovators, I thought would be very, very relevant. Yeah, nice to meet everybody.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. That's so great. So let's start with that. So maybe Diana, you can talk about the inspiration behind your idea. So let's explore this question of why innovation. Why is it necessary in schools today?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of to go hand in hand with why I wanted to create the event is that I feel like, especially now, Generation Z, they are so creative, have so many ideas, but our educational system is very structured, and it might fit some kids, but not others. So I feel like we need to give them the opportunities to express themselves. And the other idea is the fact that they need to be provided with the resources to, and feel free to explore other avenues. Like the curriculum is wonderful, it provides structure, but at the end of the day, especially after they leave school, that structure is completely gone. So I feel like we need to empower them to learn how to innovate from a young age, and the potential is definitely there. Kids are so creative, they come up with the craziest things. So yeah.
Great. Anyone else want to jump in?
Just random. Is everybody like super good, or mine is just lagging nonstop? Is it just me? Just asking.
In terms of the bandwidth, mine's pretty good. There's
Okay.
Jean-Pierre.
I put the slider all the way down, and it's still like for me. But anyway, maybe it's just me, and we're doing a lot of stuff right now on the network, so it's possible it's just me.
Okay, well, follow along as best you can, and don't worry about asking like follow-up questions. Anthony, do you want to talk about why innovation?
So yeah, but that's what I mean. Like if right now, say just kicked out right now.
Okay. Oh, try your best.
Anyway,
yeah.
So I may get disconnected. I'm just saying because I see my slider adjusting, going tick 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 like this nonstop. So it's maybe just me.
No worry.
Don't worry if I just disconnect out of nowhere and come back randomly. It's just me. Sorry.
Anthony, do you want to talk about why innovation and sort of your perspective?
Yeah, well, I guess switching over to history, a couple of people, my background's in technology with younger kids, and I had a number of years in that. And then switching over to social science has been quite interesting because it's so content heavy. So one of my goals is, talked about with Garth, working with him at Bayview Glen, was trying to find ways to just make the subject more engaging, more active. And I think that, after some thinking it through this book and looking at ideas, I think the idea of telling stories seems to come through hugely using technology or using whatever tool. And I think that for humanities, I think that that's one huge strength that can be leveraged. The idea of telling stories and making meaning and making something meaning through the depth of understanding through our background in history and ideas. I think that's crucial. And if we can weave the technology in there, that would be great. One area that I've been researching this summer has been sort of augmented reality and a number of different apps, and I really want to see if I can leverage that as just another layer to tell stories for students coming up in the next year. So really, that's this merge of humanities and technology I found in the chapter of the book. Creates sort of an innovative way of dealing with the material, especially when it can be quite knowledge-based.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I was thinking about reading this book, on page 160, it talks about a professor teaching a course called The History of Technology.
Yeah.
And so often we tell the story of history that was taught to us. So it's the Canadian history tends to cover the World Wars, maybe even the Cold War, but it could be a social history. And wouldn't it be interesting to talk about the history of technological innovations and put students in the role of saying, if you had this problem in World War II, you had a problem with munitions, you had a problem with mobilization, how would you solve it? And let them come to that through design thinking, as Jennifer was saying earlier. Let them solve it first, and then use history to say, oh, this is how it actually happened, right? And see how close their ideas were, how disparate their ideas were. I think that's a huge learning curve there. Jennifer, do you want to jump in? Why
Just
innovation?
a comment about the Anthony's comment about history and or the marriage of humanities and technology, and I think that that's so important. There's all this focus on STEM learning right now, and now people are talking about adding the arts back in there, the STEAM idea, because and then the chapter about the guy that developed the first iPhone talked about this quite a bit, where it's not just about developing the technology, but it's about developing or creating that user experience, and so the humanities are so important for that as well.
Yeah, and just to jump on board with that, Jennifer, this course I took over the summer was all about mobile tech, and too often I think in schools it's like, hey, put your phones away, we're trying to do some work here. Well, as much as possible, I see those devices as ways to to really engage with the materials and also to create narratives. So, things like VRs and augmented reality, but even, using them to take pictures and things can be a nice way of storyboarding whatever experiences you're doing. And I think, just to get general for a second, that quote in the book about humanities teaching you to rebel against everything and question and be critical thinkers, I think is crucial.
So let's steer the conversation now so we got a really good sense of why innovation. Jennifer talked at the very beginning about moving out of this industrial model and more towards a model that's more appropriate for the type of work that we're doing. And even the type of work that we here, all five of us, hi Marcie, all five of us are doing here, just the idea that teachers are working differently, our students are working differently, but organizations are consistently very slow to catch up to the how and the why of that. So can we talk a little bit about how we're integrating innovation, whether it's in the classroom individually, with a department, with an area of your school? But before we do, let's say hello to Marcie. Hi, Marcie.
Hi.
Marcie was one of the first members of Cohort 21 way back in the day, and we've been keeping in touch. She's an avid blogger, and she truly is an innovative teacher, so it's really great to have you. Do you want to just have a quick introduction of yourself there, Marcie?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I teach grade 6 now at Ridley in St. Catharines, and I'm the PYP coordinator, and I have a master's degree in ed tech from Michigan State. So I've been busy working on that for a few years.
And we've been following along, which has been really great. So does anyone can jump in here. So how do we institutionalize, or how do we make innovation a routine with our teachers, our students, or ourselves?
One thing that I thought was really key was there was a chapter that talked about. Oh, hold on, I might be mixing up my books now. I just finished reading Blended as well, which for me was like mind-blowing. And it may have been in that, but it talked about how a lot of organizations, the CEOs believe that they're the only ones with good ideas, and everyone below them is simply an implementer. And you can tell me if this is the wrong book, but I thought it was a really, really interesting idea. In innovative companies, CEOs and the leaders of those companies or those schools are really like more of a collaborative model. It's not that these are the implementers, but these are the people with the ideas, and we're going to put them in practice together. So I think that in terms of from a leadership or a strategic point of view, having that sort of model is really cool. I don't know if it exists in your schools, or maybe in some small areas in your schools it exists, but I thought that was a really kind of from a strategic point of view, that was a really cool starting point. Yeah,
and certainly is echoed in this book, and it's all over Blended as well, which is a great. If you want to innovate in the delivery of your curriculum, Blended is a great book to tell you a number of different ways that you can make that happen. What about you, Anthony, or Diana? Feel free to jump in as well. Diana, your mic is muted. There we go. Try that. There you go. Try now, Diana.
How about now?
Yep.
Yes? Oh, okay. So I was just going to say it's actually very interesting being with you folks and listening to all this. As I said, I'm not a teacher. I work for a company that actually builds mobile engagement tools for students that are in universities, but a lot of the focus of my interest is has to do with K to 12. In terms of innovation, what's really interesting is that I find like schools are adopting, or they should adopt models that you might see in startup companies, especially the one, and I wrote actually an article about this, part of the Alt MBA, where you have, there is a lack of hierarchy, so ideas can flow a little bit more freely. I'm not sure actually if this is something that does happen in schools or if it's more of a top-down approach. So Garth, I'm not necessarily able to comment on that.
No, I think that your point is so well taken, that our schools are so organizationally heavy. We've got department heads, and we've got sub-department heads, we've got heads of school, assistant heads of school, that the pipeline of innovation towards what Jennifer was talking about is very vertical. And I think what you're saying too, and I think Tony Wagner would agree, is how do we flatten that out, or how do we at least put the right people in the right rooms to develop these ideas? And one of the things which sort of leads to that is when he's talking about a couple of schools. This is on page 192, and he's talking about these schools and how they're just reshifting the organization of teachers and how teachers actually work. So it says, I was referencing 2 schools. They regularly videotape their student teachers to help them assess and develop their skillfulness as teachers. These practices are exceedingly rare in schools and teacher development and preparation programs. Beyond the specific innovations, both schools are also developing teacher skills to work collaboratively, to create interdisciplinary courses where students construct new knowledge and more actively engage students in their learning and the pursuit of their passions. In other words, he writes, they are preparing teachers who can develop the essential skills and dispositions of innovators that we've explored throughout this book already. And I think that the future of our schools is going to be, how do we put teachers in these positions, and how do we put students in these positions as well? So I don't know if Marcie, if you can talk a little bit about what you've done through your work with technology in your classroom, where you really try to flatten out your teaching model as well.
Yeah, I think a big kind of lever is the permission to try new things and permission to have things not go perfectly. I think everyone that, whenever I'm talking to parents with things that I'm trying, I'm saying like I'm trying this, so I need feedback from you in terms of what your kids are saying at home, and what you're hearing, because if we don't try new things, we won't find out if there's a better way. And I think that whole implementation dip was something that I looked at a lot in my master's program, is that when people initially try something different than the way that they used to, it doesn't work as well in the very beginning. So I think finding ways to support people through that initial implementation dip, so that they're okay with that uneasiness and not being maybe as comfortable as their old method felt, but giving them strategies to help work through it so that they can develop something that's better or more effective, or uses different skills than the old model did.
I love that phrase, giving permission, and it's very simple for us as teachers to give permission to our students, like, hey, try this out. Where did you get that from, Marcie? Where did you find the confidence to give yourself the permission to reach out and ask parents for feedback and ask students for feedback?
I think I just kind of always did it. When I started at Ridley, we were just beginning the K-4 program. So I came in kind of from we had always started at 5th grade, and so we'd opened up this new program. And so I think because it was new, there was this automatic, there was nothing had been done before, so we could create from the beginning. And then in starting, we adopted the primary years program a few years in. And so again, we were at this rebirthing stage where there was no kind of, it's been done this way for 20 years, so that's how it gets done.
Nice.
So we've always kind of had that, do we like this? Is there something different? How could we change this? So I think we're about 10 years in now, and that philosophy hasn't left yet, because we're all we've always just looked at it as how can we make this a better experience, a better product, how can we meet the needs of our students better. So I think part of it's that environment.
Okay, that's great. I think it does have to be and Tony Wagner, a bunch of books talk about how the administration, if you are a vertically aligned or a vertically heavy organizational structure, does have to be modeled by the administration as well. And that's certainly something I'm hoping to do, is that idea of communicating that we're taking a risk, or communicating that there will be soft landings if we fail, and those types of things. Another way which I've explored through an organization called Future Design Schools is bringing innovation into the school itself in a packaged program or something along those lines, but also sending students out to innovation. So maybe Diana, you can talk about what are your hopes for your sort of innovative entrepreneurship program.
Right, so really I think the aim is that students walk away from the weekend feeling like they have the tools to pursue whatever ideas they might have. Actually, the theme of the event, and Garth, you and I had spoken about this, you said that we should try and narrow it down, and we're actually going to go with the smart school. And students are going to be challenged to leverage the Internet of Things to solve daily problems that they encounter, whether it be in the classroom or at the cafeteria, or trying to cross the street to enter the courtyard. So really, I think it's just we hope to empower them, and I feel like children in general are told what to do. You should get an A in mathematics and all of these subjects, because if you don't, you're going to fail and you're never going to go to university. So they have predefined paths, and structure, again, I think is healthy, but at the same time, they need to feel like they can innovate, and I feel like society is in need of that. So hopefully by the end of the weekend they will have some tools and be able to go out there and pursue those ideas. I think overall it's just the confidence. We want to provide them with that confidence.
I think too, it's a safe place because it's outside of school, right? And there are teachers who are going to be assessing you, and it's low stakes. I think the big challenge is how do we bring this into our curriculum, and how do we bring this into our courses?
I think I read somewhere, Garth, that this idea I think you're getting at is the idea of making the extracurricular curricular. How do we engage students so that they can bring in their interests? For instance, I had a student this year that was all about cars. He was into cars or whatever as a grade 12, and he was wanting to do that with a number of his design projects. And he was almost really surprised when I said, hey, let's do that with so many different things that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that with as many different projects that you want to do, because that's an interest and it's a passion. And it worked out really well because I found that by pushing him and and encouraging him, that the level of his interest and dedication to work on the minutia of projects was at a much higher level. He continually would not just say, oh, okay, I met a challenge, I'm going to stop. He would continually try to resolve those and iterate as much as possible in order to get to where he needed to go. And I think another thing that I found really helpful, and I think I'm really just in the early stages of this, is almost like a little bit of an alternative assessment strategy. Not every kid's going to be motivated by getting an A, but maybe if you put together a sort of a system of merit, maybe using things like badging is something I've been experimenting with over the course of the year that you've seen, and I think that kind of allows students to demonstrate their mastery in a way that maybe is meaningful to you. It's not that a badge means an A or a badge means that big deal. It's just really it's sort of a conversation between you and the student that showcases that this is where they're at this particular level, and then maybe you can take them to the next stage by saying, hey, I see where you're here, why don't you look at this source? So I guess that's kind of something that I'm playing around with, different ways to motivate students and bringing the extracurricular into the curricular.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, and I really love what they say, because and Jennifer, you're going to talk about this, I think, in like 1 minute or so, but this idea of play, passion, and purpose. Is that right, Jennifer?
Go for it.
Okay, good. I'm gonna cue you up here because something I think is really important, regardless of the grade, is this: don't ever make the assumption that students know what they're passionate about. Don't ever make the assumption that they're coming to class just dying to do something, because they don't know what they don't know yet. They haven't experienced what they haven't experienced yet. And as simple as that sounds, I think it's our job as educators, it's our job, Diana, it's, expose them to problem solving in a really exciting and dynamic way, so they can you can help them find their passion. All right, there you go. There's my lead in for you, Jennifer.
So one of the elements of the culture of innovation that he talks about is this idea of developing an intrinsic motivation in your students. But we say, how do you make a student intrinsically motivated? You can't. It doesn't make sense. And he says the elements of intrinsic motivation are play, passion, and purpose. Sorry, you guys hearing a lot of beep, beep, beep?
Yep. You have us on too. That's better?
Is that better?
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's way.
Feedback?
Yep.
Sorry, so this idea of play, passion, and purpose, which are key to the idea of developing this intrinsic motivation in students. We always talk about how can we get students more engaged, how can we get them more motivated, but you can't create an intrinsic motivation. You have to just provide the atmosphere for it to happen. You know what I mean? And things like 20% time or a genius hour, things like that are kind of cool ways where you can try and make that happen. I haven't tried it myself, but it's all about saying, try this, explore this, experiment with that, introduce them to all these sorts of things and model that willingness to fail like we've talked about, and create a culture where it's okay to take risks and it's okay to fail, and then hopefully they'll learn how to play like they used to play without worrying about making a mistake, or not winning or not getting an A.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the book talks about how parents have to be looped into that ethos as well. I don't know if Marcie, if you have any insights about how your parents have responded to your work.
Yeah, I think in teaching in the kind of primary junior, it's interesting to see how, as soon as they get into about grade 5 and grade 6, we don't give letter grades. It's more standards based, so they're either meeting the expectation or approaching the expectation. But as soon as they get, into grade 5 or 6, they become more conscious of grade levels. And as teachers, we find that we're always trying to bring the conversation back to the parents and saying, like, we're trying to instill a love of learning, and just this is where they are now. We just want to move them to the next thing. This is, the next step that they need to go on. But it's so different for parents compared to how they experienced school that it takes a while to get that kind of philosophy through. And, there is a time and a place for that to happen, but it doesn't need to be in grade 6.
Yeah. Anthony or Jennifer, do you want to jump in on parents at all?
Yeah, I mean, we teach in a really specific kind of environment where the idea of success might be a little bit different than it would be for some of these parents of the innovators that were profiled in this book, right? And there was in the last section of the book that did talk about parents, there was so much about being okay with the fact that the idea that maybe medicine and law and business are not the only 3 ways of experiencing success. So it's tough in our environment, I think, because so many of the parents at the schools where we teach are successful in law or business or medicine, in those kind of traditional subject areas where getting the highest grade and then getting into the best business school is kind of the be-all and end-all. So I think we have a particularly unique challenge with parents, and I don't have any answers. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know if I have enough experience with that, so maybe you guys would be better suited to speak about that.
I had a really good experience actually with a parent about this kind of topic, which kind of stuck with me. There was the parent that came in and talked to some of our technology students, and she told a little bit of her background. She's traditionally from Iran, and her dad really wanted her to go into medicine, and she had the smarts to do it, and she went all the way through, and one of the things that she liked to do in her sort of spare time was, of course, drawing, illustrating, art, and things like that. And so that was sort of her passion, but her family was pushing her towards medicine. And so she pursued and got her medical degree, went all the way through, but in the background she always wanted to work with artistic tools and drawing. And so eventually she pivoted so that she managed to have enough contacts in the medical field and combine that with her illustration. Someone turned around and said, hey, we need to make a medical textbook. We need to put something together that involves artwork, but we need someone who has a medical background. And so she was able to parlay that into her own business as being a medical illustrator. So I thought that was interesting because it's kind of like taking 2 disparate things, seemingly, and putting them together, almost like the remix of a career. And as I kept reading through this book, I kept thinking about this story of her and how she put 2 things together. And I wonder in schools, can we do something similar? Can we take 2 completely separate things, maybe something practical like welding, okay, and mix that with biology? can we put those things together? And if we do that and we offer those opportunities for people to kind of remix their careers, are we going to engage that one student or two or whoever that is interested in that specific thing? And is that where we need to go with our with the way things can go in high school, that we need to be that specific, compiling things together? Just a thought.
Yeah, that is certainly very interesting. One of the things which so that sort of strikes a chord with, and one of the things we're going to wrap up with is the messages around these types of things to parents and what's possible. And I love, I actually, from this book, I went deep into General Dempsey, like in his background. He's the military general that he talks about in the back at the end of the book. And he writes, I used to give a talk to all new Rising Battalion Brigade commanders, and I made them 3 promises. And I think these are 3 things that we should tell our teachers and we should tell our parents too. I think it would be really interesting to see their reactions. He says, I made 3 promises. 1, we're not going to give you an organization that is perfectly fitted to your needs. 2, we're not going to give you the equipment that is exactly what you'd like to have to accomplish your mission. And 3, the guidance you get is likely to be late and not exactly what you need. No, I think that's
Sounds like my class. Yeah, I love that.
when you're honest like that, then to Marcie's point, you bring them in and they start asking questions. Well, why not? And this whole notion of personalized learning, and I don't know if you saw, I read the book called The End of Average. We know so much about how individuals learn that it's statistically and physically and logistically impossible to teach an individual student unless it's one-on-one and hit them all, and really hit all of their learning needs. So that sort of captured what I think is a great message for our parents and for our teachers and for our admin. We are not a perfect place, and we cannot demand perfection from our students. So I don't know if someone wants to jump in there after that.
Just say thanks. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've had the "you cannot be all things to all people at all times" conversation.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of focus on something and be good at something, and you can't be good at everything all the time to everyone.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my personal kind of mantra, as there's so many great things out there that you want to be great at, but you can't do it all. So
that's a good point, Marcie. I think because also kids are adaptable too. I mean, they do pick up on a particular mentor educator strength, and if you've done a good job, then they'll latch onto that and benefit from it, whether it's your particularly tech savvy, or you're really good at perseverance, or you're just really good in a particular subject area. I think that students will benefit from that, and we don't have to worry necessarily about hitting everyone. Just have to do our best and showcase our strength. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and if we have a faculty that's made up of diverse people with diverse interests and diverse strengths, hopefully throughout a student's experience, they're going to get to come across people who are passionate about a wide variety of things and connect with a bunch of people that are, contributing to providing an exceptional experience.
Yeah. So in your work, Marcie and Jennifer and Anthony, Diana had to leave. She had to run out to another meeting. What's another book that you would recommend? What's the next thing we should read?
My reading list is way too long for my own good. I don't know about yours, but for me, I just finished reading Blended, and for someone who's actually looking to try and incorporate some of those strategies in my school, in my own classroom, I found it really, really inspiring. I mean, it is kind of big picture as well, if you're trying to change your whole school, but I loved some of the principles in it, especially the idea of this non-consumption model versus this sort of sustaining model of innovation. Are we introducing technology or blended learning in our classes in order to keep up the status quo, basically, of the traditional school model, or is it we're trying to turn that on its head? So for me, that was probably one of the most valuable things that I I read this summer was Blended, but I've got 30 more books next to me here ready to ready to go.
You need an extended summer. Anything from you, Marcie or Anthony?
I just started FutureWise by David Perkins. He's out of Project Zero, and I've been reading a lot of the stuff coming out of Project Zero. So it's I went to the Project Zero conference last year, and it was amazing. If you have the opportunity to go, they're hosting it in Washington over Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, and so that's what I'm reading. Educating Our Children for a Changing World.
And what's one of your big takeaways? Why would you recommend it?
I think it's like that focusing on bigger ideas and like the making sure that there's a connection with studying things that matter to students. So that purpose-driven school. So I've only read like the first chapter, but when I saw him speak last year, it was just, he was a great speaker, so I'm hopeful that the book will be just as good.
Great. So that's FutureWise. And who's the author again?
David Perkins.
David Perkins. Great. Anthony, you got any recommendations?
Well, I've been doing a lot of research actually for my master's as well. So I'm on mobile technology and incorporating that into the classroom. So just lots of articles. But as far as a book goes, I'm about halfway through Ken Robinson's Creative Schools as well. So that's another one that kind of levels up the amount of creativity in the curriculum, and so I'm enjoying engaging into that as much as I can, and yeah, just trying to find new ways to empower students to do fun things in the classroom, and I think creativity is probably the best tool.
Nice. Well, if you've been following my blog, I've done quite a bit of reading this summer, but I'm just going to add one more. It's called Innovative Intelligence. It was given to me by a colleague here at Havergal, and it's very practical. Like, a lot of these books are so great in terms of, the big switch, the big shift that we want to make in education. But I think something like Blended, Liz Arney, she wrote Go Blended. But this book, Innovative Intelligence, speaks a little bit about the how. I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot. It has an entire chapter or section of the book dedicated to how leaders need to behave in order to model that type of thinking and that type of action. So, Innovative Intelligence. So that's great. Jennifer, do you want to close us off here?
Well, just want to say thank you guys for joining us. I know it's probably, if it's like me, it's your last week of freedom, and so thanks so much for taking the time to come and join us here and talking about Blended. We should definitely do this again, and yeah, that was great.
Maybe it's one of the books that you recommended. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast, everybody. Thanks so much.